It's the first day of summer. Let's do a garden walk at the Orchid Hut. So as usual, when I try to come outside to film something with the orchids, there's all sorts of construction noise. A neighbor is sawing something and they're replacing the sidewalk a little ways down the street, so every once in a while you may hear some strange noises. Also, I'm off the tripod for this video, so I apologize in advance for any wobbliness, shakiness. But because it is the first day of summer, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it is 99 degrees, probably feels like 500, no, probably not 500, but it probably does feel like 110. I thought I would do a first day of summer garden walk and just give you some updates on what the orchids are doing. So we're going to start with the shelf that is right next to the Orchid Hut itself. And if we have recently done anything else with these orchids, I will put a link in the upper right hand corner of the screen just to kind of refer you back to where these orchids came from. This is the Cymbidium, recently repotted. You can see that the new little growth down there is still doing okay. And I've been giving this one a little bit of extra attention with moisture. And hopefully that one will take off. Now, the good news with the Vandas, and in particular this one and one of the others, there are a ton of new root tips. So all of that is encouraging. As well, there's new growth at the top of the Vandas. And this particular dendrobium is planted, it's rather tall, it's planted in this clay cone, and because of the lovely humidity that we have here, all of the new little root tips are even reaching away from the clay pot, but this one is doing really well planted this way. I'm pleased with how it has grown. This is the new cane for this year, doing really well, nice and strong. Will hopefully be larger than the one from last year. Let's see, down here, this is another Vanda, and I was a little bit concerned about this one at the beginning of the spring. It has all of these sort of black marks that Vandas can get. I have sprayed it with some neem oil. Maybe that sort of eradicated what the problem was, but it has new growth at the top of the plant. I was a little bit concerned as well because there was not any new root growth starting, but today I am noticing that from the tips of the old roots there is some indication that those roots are going to be branching here within the next few days or so, so that's positive. Then this is my Dendrobium Maiden Charlotte, recently repotted, and the good news there is that there is a lot of new growth coming from the base of the plant, very encouraging. Hopefully the root system will follow. And then let's see, Tolumnia is doing well. I had repotted in these little white ceramic potters for a couple of these, oh gosh, probably now about 2 years ago, and they have really taken to that potting method with the large chunks of bark in the bottom of the pot. And then I have some other newer Tolumnias that are sort of just sitting and waiting their turn to be repotted. I have to admit right now I am feeling a little tiny bit overwhelmed with all of the repotting that I still need to do and the places where orchids need attention, but one day at a time. Okay, so this is Brassivola nodosa. A lot of new roots, some of them attaching to the clay pot. I do believe this one right here will have a bloom sheath, so this one bloomed for the first time last year, so hopefully it will bloom again this year. And this dendrobium was a recent repot. The two new little growths you see down at the bottom here were just starting when I repotted this orchid, and they are well on their way now. A couple of more Tolumnias here. This dendrobium here on the corner is going to be due for a repot soon. This is still how I received it from the grower, but it does have a new growth starting down there at the bottom, and new roots will follow, so this needs to get into a new pot sooner rather than later. Up here we have Sassy Miss Copper Queen, and then we have another Vanda. And none of my Vandas have bloomed, but of course they are still relatively young plants, so I'm not discouraged yet, but a lot of great new root tips on this Vanda, so that's a great sign. Okay, up here a mounted Cattleya, new root tips on it, as well as the tiniest of a new little growth right there on the side. Okay, so this is kind of a primary growing area here. Now, hanging on the side here, I have a couple of bulbophyllums. They're putting on a little bit of new growth. And then down here, this is kind of what I call my staging area. These are orchids that all need to have a bit of attention in one way or the other. They're either new, and I'm letting them just acclimate here in a place where there's the most shade, and some of them need to be mounted. Some of them just had a really difficult time last year, fell out of the pot, broken canes, you know, a lot of different issues going on with these orchids, but they're kind of just hanging out waiting for whatever it is that needs to happen next with them. This is my hanging Ascosenda, but now just considered a Vanda. It's doing well. I had wanted to get around to changing the potting situation with this one, but now new root tips have started and new growth is kind of started, and I just don't think it's the right time to disturb this one, because I am going to need to cut away that nasty plastic pot there. And so I'm just gonna, I think, let it go until it kind of goes into more of a rest situation. Okay, love this plant right here. This is a Ligularia. Looks like a giant lily pad. Okay, now moving on over to the new growing space, which I did a whole video on this one a while back. Let's start right down here, because this is the Grammatophyllum that I recently repotted. This is the new growth right here, which is massive, absolutely massive. And the good news is that down in this pot there is just already just all kinds of new root growth going on. So I'm really happy with how that one is doing. This is a species orchid, Purpurata, I believe, and you can see that that one has possibly 2 buds forming right there, and this is encouraging. I recently repotted this dendrobium. It had a lot of problems. This was one of the ones with spider mites and all kinds of issues. But you can see now down inside the pot, hopefully, that there is some new growth, and hopefully new roots will follow. This is also very, very encouraging. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. This is the Moschatum that I mounted with the sphagnum moss, and right there by my finger you can see some new growth. And then as well, on the part that's mounted below, there's new growth right there. I really am hoping that the camera is focusing in on that. And so I'm very encouraged by that. It may take to that mount after all. And And then Maxillaria tenafolia has not bloomed for me, but it's doing okay. It is getting a bit more light now, so I'm hoping that that will help with the blooming situation. Coming back down here, radiata still in bloom, but it is beginning to fade. This is one of the plants I'm going to need to deal with. I think I'm going to cut the rhizome in half versus putting it in a larger pot. You can see down there on the side a whole bunch of roots that are just way outside the pot. It is getting new growth right here, and it has some new growth happening right here, so now will be the time to deal with this. Another Cattleya type right here, new roots coming, as well as a new pseudobulb happening right down here. And then yellow bird. I do believe there are some blooms developing on that. And then of course we have the gorgeous Cattleya, which you all have seen in the featured orchid video. And then this one, this Brassivola has never bloomed for me, so I have moved it to this location so that it can get a little bit more light, and hopefully that will trigger some blooming. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to walk over to one of my other smaller growing spaces outside, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is a place where some more work is needed. Dendrobium anosmum and Dendrobium little sweet scent. They have some keikis that could be removed to try to, I think I want to put these on a mount because they're not even developing any canes for this growing season yet, so they are probably on the brink of going out if I don't do something a little different. This is the Wilsonara that I repotted a little while ago. It's doing okay. This particular growing area is bright light but never gets any full sun at all, and this is Oncidium space race with a bloom spike, and then catasetums right here that are doing okay, but if I compare their growth to last year, they're maybe not doing quite as well as they did last year. I'll have to think about what the reason for that might be. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. The subscribe button will be coming up in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and click that notifications bell so that you know when I post something new. It's really hot out here. I'm going to talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching.